Steve, you're ready to go.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you very much for everyone popping in. So the way we like to work it as much as possible is that unfortunately I talk way too much, and then find myself going getting to that point where people are just lost. So what I don't want to do is let people get lost. So Brian's going to be manning the chat, and he will interrupt any time that there's something that pops up that we just can't really easily describe in the chat pod. What we will be going through today is Adobe XD, Experience Designer. And so some of it might be really new to people. And so when we talk through some of the concepts, it might be a little bit too fast. So, I'd quite happily back out and go slower over concepts so that you can understand it at a more deeper level. I do know that going over things is much better than just ignoring it and rolling on and just having no impact. So I will now share my screen, which apparently somewhere I have to buy a beer every time I do start saying that. And this is Blue Jeans. Wow. It's been a while since I've been in Blue Jeans. So I just...
I think Steve must have clicked the wrong button and accidentally got out of the room. I'll just text him back. Just bear with me, sorry guys. Oh, Steve, you're back. What happened? Can't hear you, Steve. Are you on mute?
I hope not. How's that?
Okay, all right, good. Yeah.
There was
Okay,
an
go ahead.
unfortunate flick of the keyboard that meant that I quit when I wasn't supposed to be quitting. Can you
Okay.
see my
Yeah.
Adobe XD there on the screen there,
Okay,
Brian?
good.
Awesome. Okay, so yep, I'm going to go through Adobe XD and show essentially what Adobe XD or Experience Designer is all about, where it sort of sits within the various Creative Cloud applications. Experience Designer is probably one of our newest applications. I think it is. Yeah, no, it's certainly an area of what Adobe has to offer in the Creative Cloud that's pretty new, and it does have it's the concept of what it does going back to a number of different applications that have been used for this concept over time. And this concept is creating user interfaces for various outputs, whether that is websites or potentially applications or even things like Alexa style interfaces, so the voice applications. So Experience Designer is creating those the look and feel for applications and other things that might become interactive digital experiences. And so some of the applications people have used in the past to create the look and feel might even be Photoshop or back in the Fireworks days, which is one of the Macromedia products from way back that created some of these experiences. So people have always looked to design the look and feel for whether it, as I said, an application or a website, and then pass that concept onto a developer to create a real version of it, a working version of it, and it's always been a bit of a challenge. The other thing that people do like to do is the concept of wireframing and whiteboarding and other things. So Adobe Experience Designer is all about doing all of those different things. So what I might do is actually just kick off where it's really good to actually start off. And I've opened up XD. And I do like to always point out, if I tap on Learn, it will actually go to a website. And this website, it has step-by-step starting guides with working with Adobe XD. And I see they've actually redesigned a lot of the tutorials, which is pretty cool, which also means that some of the guides that I've created recently, I do need to update. But this is what the help files have, is a number of different downloadable step-by-step guides that go through from the very basic concept of what XD is all about through to the end results. And so this, design, prototype, components, collaboration, that's broadly a lot of the things that we do work off, and that is some of the things that I will kick off with today. So again, do ask questions on our way through, and we will try to outline exactly what we're looking at. So the first thing I want to do is actually create a, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't find a button to raise my hand, so I haven't used this program. It sounds like, you're saying this is a prototyping sort of a program.
It is a prototyping program. It's a collaboration, design, ideation piece of software.
Cool. That's great, because I know for the senior technologies that we teach, that's a really important part of it. And I was just thinking in terms of robotics or electronics, if you've known of people using this for, say, showing a plan for how perhaps a sequence of menus on an Arduino with an LCD screen, or how a robot might operate with, you would have different subroutines for different functions of the robot.
Absolutely. I mean, this, if you were to draw something out in maybe Illustrator, flow charting, that sort of stuff, it actually makes more sense to do it in XD, just because you can then do more of a full-fledged animation of what you expect to happen.
Yeah, cool.
So it definitely does land us in that direction. So what I'll try to do is give you a bit of a flavor for what is easy to do, and then start working into some of the more complex stuff.
Cool, thanks.
No worries. No, thanks for that question. And I'm more than happy for you to not just put up the hand, because I don't notice it when I'm doing these. I just get lost on multiple screens. So I'm going to create a new document here, and something that I should point out right from the word go is that when we do create new documents in XD, it does really push us towards cloud documents. So it starts off locally. So, for example, I'll start off with just an iPhone concept. So, I can click the little down arrow and say, which version of the iPhone do I want to go from? So maybe the iPhone 10. So it doesn't really matter where I start off. It just is a place to begin with. And I'll just walk through the interface initially so that you get a bit of a feel for it, and then we can start creating some stuff. So we have some very basic menus. There's not a lot of work that I often do inside the menus. I occasionally do pop up there, but this tends to be the way that Adobe applications are working more and more, is that the interface is very much based on the stages of the work that we work on. And you can see there that there's a little cloud icon suggesting that this is where this document will go to, and it's even time-stamped. So, if I do save at various times, and I open and close over various days, I can go back to any particular version of this document at that time-stamped concept. So that's the first thing that I do like to point out, that this is, I'm connected, and it's going to be a cloud document. You can create local documents as well, of course. I'm in the design phase at the moment, so if I do click on the home button, obviously the home area does pop up, and then clicking back to design allows me to go back into the design phase. So this is really the three major phases of work with XD: is designing the concepts up front, then prototyping how that and hooking up the functionality of the prototype that I'm creating, whether again that's a website or menu items or however you want it to work. And then ultimately, and if I click on prototype, you'll see it, just slight differences in the way the interface looks. And then ultimately share. And share has a number of different options for this that are very much based on the workflow and the documents that I'm creating, whether I do want people to review the design that I'm working on, whether I actually want to share all the design assets and CSS, etc. to a developer. I can actually choose what to pass on to that developer. It might be all the images and the buttons and the rollovers and all those sorts of things. I might decide to share those. I can also present direct from XD, because obviously one of the most important things is presenting the idea of what you're actually creating, if it happens to be an application or a website, for example. You can create a version that is online that is for user testing, and you can actually customize and create and export. And you can choose who it is that will be able to actually look at this. So you can choose for that to be either via the web or even via, there's an Adobe Xd Companion app for mobile devices, for both iOS and Android, that allows you to actually check this concept out on your mobile device as well. So it can be a web link, or it can actually be working on the device that you have connected to your Adobe account. Okay, so those are the major areas that we work through: the design, prototype, and share. So this, what each of those does will become more sort of clear as we're working along. So when I do go into the design phase, what appears on the left here is all the assets that are inside the document. Of course, there is nothing yet because I haven't drawn anything yet. And we have some basic tools for doing simple things like drawing simple frames, so circles, triangles, etc. And there's a few little on item controls, so I don't have to change tools in order to make subtle changes to this, the look and feel of this item when I'm drawing it. And over on the right is all of the controls that I might want to actually apply to working with this. In this case, it's just a rectangle now with circular corners. And you can see that some of the options for that circular corner, if I do make little adjustments, it's actually changing here over on the fly. So I might decide exactly how many pixels that circular corner can be. I can change the fill and border and things like inner shadows and drop shadows on that item that I've drawn. So again, a lot of the controls are set over here. And again, I'll go into some of the concepts of some of these as we're working along, because it's obviously very important to understand some of the cool things that we can do with it. So we have all those tools. We have the type tool and the pen tool, which is familiar. And this little tool down here is our Artboard tool. So at the moment, I've got a single page, as it were. So when you're prototyping an application, for example, or a website, you might have multiple pages that work through. And you might even have animations that work from one state to another. So that's where we can actually have this Artboard tool add multiple pages to our design. So for example, what I might do is have this frame as part of my wireframe, and this page as the page that goes to next, sort of thing. So what I want to do is when I click on this page, it goes to that page as an example. So what I do is pop into the prototype tool and actually click on one artboard, hook it up to the next one, and then that creates the interaction that I'm looking at. At the moment, it's just a tap trigger that transitions from one page to the other, and I can prototype this directly on my desktop here by just clicking on the little play button and click on it, and it does the transition. So very, very basic concept there. So to get rid of that page, I just click on the little heading above it and then hit delete, and it disappears for me. So that's my Artboard tool. So Artboards essentially are each stage of the design phase. And of course, we have zoom because we can get quite complicated in these application. We have our libraries. So the library that I'm working on at the moment is all of the assets that are inside this application. So that I haven't actually got any colors, character styles, and components added yet, but I can start adding them as I'm going along because I might apply them over and over and over again. But I do have access to all my Creative Cloud libraries, which might have, as an example, all of my brand assets and my coloring assets that are part of my Adobe set of iconography and graphics and other things. I've even got some cool little dinguses down the bottom here that I might add to my design as I'm going through. So these come from a library of standard icons for me to actually work with. So this is the process for making a nice consistent look and feel for applications, working with libraries. And going back to my document assets is everything again that I'd use just in this document alone. So I'm just going to delete that option. Next along, I've got layers. So obviously any of these documents, very similar to Illustrator and Photoshop, I've got layers. And down the bottom is plugins. So plugins is very cool. The plugin concept of Adobe XD is that different people have different concepts of what I might like to do with XD. And so if I click on Discover Plugins, it actually pops to the Creative Cloud desktop app, and I can actually look at all the plugins, for example, for Adobe XD. And so plugins literally, so you can see avatars for design mockups, icons, undraw. My favorite in XD is actually the whiteboarding tool. So if I click on whiteboard here, we can open up the whiteboard tool, and you can see some of the tools, the templates that have already been created for for brainstorming in this case, affinity, business models, cards sorting, customer journey map. So I click on one of those, and it automatically will create a customer journey map in my Adobe XD project. And so now I can go through and see it's got the how to use, just delete that and start working with these cards and filling in bits and pieces based on the concept of a design thinking canvas, which is very cool. Again, I can just delete the one that we've got there and step back because I just want to work with the document assets that we have. Okay, so I haven't actually done too much work on my great project yet, but I'm going to start making a bit of a working prototype for what I think of as a travel application. So again, one of the really cool things about working with Adobe XD is the concept of working with groups of people on design ideas. And so before I even start, I'll get together a group and start putting together some ideas, and everyone within a group often has very complementary or perhaps disparate skills that can be added to any particular project. And in this case, I'm going to add Brian. Sorry, Brian, I'm going to do it again to you, to invite to this document. Before I actually do invite Brian to this, it does ask me to save it, and that means it's going to save it to the cloud, because in order to do sharing amongst multiple people, and don't know if there's an actual limit on how many people you can add to a particular document. It obviously gets to the point where if you've got too many people, you get the herding cats problem. But in this case, I'm going to provide an invitation to Brian, and as Brian will pop up, and I'll invite Brian to edit this document. So it does mean that he can directly open up this this project and start working on it in conjunction with the work that I'm doing. So I might be just mapping out the wireframe, and Brian might be going back over it and cleaning up all the mess that I make in generating the initial wireframe. So my travel app that I'm building out, I want a little map to actually appear, a little mud map, and you can actually see Brian's popped into the document already. He has this open and he can start doing stuff. And he's jumping ahead. You're jumping ahead, Brian. What are you doing? That's exactly what I was going to do next. You know this, don't you, Brian? And he's added a bit of an interface for me for some images and some text, which is absolutely awesome. And from my desktop, I'm actually going to bring in a little bit of extra detail. So again, I can just be talking along and Brian's actually doing all the work for me, which is absolutely the best way to work. So I've got some assets that will actually help me in working with this project. So I've already got a map to bring in and a few images. So in order to, I can import into my project, but I can also just drag and drop it from my desktop directly into the document itself. And there you can see the mud map appearing, but it's very, very, very small. And I want people to be able to pinch and zoom and scroll around inside that map. So XD allows me to do, it's obviously a design tool that is designed for creating for experiences. And so when I do drop an image into a frame like this, it gives me a little, one of the options that it gives me is the horizontal and vertical scroll. So if I click on this, it will allow the image that's inside that frame now to horizontally and vertically scroll. So I'm going to drag that out and make it quite large inside that frame. And there I've now got my map that is going to be of a size that people can actually read initially. So let's just see how that looks when I preview that. So I'm going to desktop preview again. And there I can now zoom around inside that frame. So it's giving me directly an interactive view of this. And one of the really cool things that just automatically happens in the background as well is that I've invited Brian to edit this. I've also saved it, so it's a cloud document. If I open up my Adobe Xd Companion app on my mobile device, whether that's iPhone or Android phone, it will have this project available to me. I'll show that in a little while. So it automatically actually does that for me. So this is a great starting point for my project. The next thing I'd like to do, so Brian's, again, done all the work for me. I'm just going to move that around just a little bit. Love all the little guides that it does bring up as it's working along. Now, I want this image to actually be multiple tiles of places to go. So I've got some more imagery that I can add to it. So as an example, I can just pop this camp image in place. Now I could go through and do copy and paste each of these and add the text individually, but I've already got a couple of assets that will actually help me, and a design methodology that I would have loved in lots of other applications like Illustrator and InDesign previously, because I've got this thing called a repeat grid over on the side here, and this tells me all that I need to do in order to create a repeat grid of this interface. So all I've got to do is now drag this slider down, and I've got multiple versions of this file. So I want it to even go past the end of the actual phone interface. And in order so that I need, well, now that I've got so much information, in fact, I can even change the sizing in between. And if I did have versions going out this way as well, I could drag that out. But I just want the repeat grid to sit nicely like so. Now, the problem will be that when I do preview this, I will only be able to see, so I can't actually move, I can still move this around, but I can't move these images around. So the actual phone size, I do need it to be a little bit bigger. So what I can do is select the artboard and actually bring that artboard down in size so that we can see the extent of the interface and how far down our page, in this case, it's kind of like a web page now, actually goes. So when we scroll down, you'll see that it works perfectly for us as a scrollable interface. Move that aside. Now, a couple of things that I'd like to do to make this scrollable interface really jump off the page for us is, first of all, I don't want the map changing as we're seeing all of the different options. I want it to stay in place and just be, you know, this one spot over here on the interface so that we can see exactly what we're looking at when we select any particular option. So what I'm going to do is just fix the position of that object when scrolling. And that will immediately mean my interface now will change. So it actually scrolls up over the top. So let's actually make a slight change again and bring that component to the front so that now the buttons actually scroll underneath. So again, what I have to do is really come up with the ideas for, you know, how things will functionally work and what will happen when I do press one button or another as examples. So I've got the starting point of the look and feel of my design, but now I want to actually make it a little bit more full-featured so that it looks more like how it will in the end. So I'm going to actually grab all these different images, count through the talon there, and drag and drop it onto that repeat grid. And what XD is smart enough to do is actually fill out all of the different versions. And what I'm doing is just creating a bit of a prototype for my design. It's not the final design, so it's not like it's hooked up to a database or anything like that. Although I can actually connect some of these things up to things like Google Sheets with one of the plugins that I have. So if I do have something of a big range of text coming from a data source, I can actually do a little bit of that sort of concept. So far, so good. Now I want the text to actually map up a little bit. So I've got some dummy text here that corresponds to those files. And again, I can just drag and drop it over the top of the first instance of the text. And again, it automatically fills out down there. And apparently the last image is Brian. It doesn't look like Brian, but not too bad. So the concept here is that we're actually creating an interface nice and quickly to be able to show people the concepts that we're working on. Next along, I want to generate a bit of an interface that allows me to have some buttons down the bottom that correspond to a navigation bar. So again, to do this roughly, I'm just going to draw a frame and very, very, very roughly just draw a circle in place. That is my, imagine if it was my search bar or something like that. So rather than put the full look and feel, I'm just dragging and dropping something that is just, again, the concept of a wireframe, so that I'm not spending all the time designing. I'm just creating the actual interface working concept. This background image, I do want to change a little bit. I want to change the fill to be sort of a bluish color. and I want it to be slightly transparent so I can see the interface rolling underneath it. So maybe about the 85%, 84%. Now, if I do test that out again, so all I've got to do is select a particular, if I've got multiple artboards, all I've got to do is select that artboard and the preview will actually show that up. Now we can see that interface starting to work, except the search bar that I've got down the bottom is not working the way that I'd like, because what I haven't done yet is fix it in place. So I've got to fix that position when scrolling. So that easily done, again, by selecting the fix scrolling. So I'm starting to really build out a pretty cool interface in a short space of time. So the next thing is that I want something to actually happen when I click one of the buttons. So I'm actually going to add another artboard, and I'm going to draw an object over here that will have one of our images pop into place. So maybe the camp as an example. And again, we'd add a little bit of text under here that is more illustrative of further information. Once I start to get to the point where I want to use things like text and colors and things over and over again within my design phase, what I can do is draw the objects, use our fill. So I might choose a sort of blue, kind of like this, and then I can add. Turn off the border there. Then I can add that color to my document asset so that I can use it over and over again. So there's that sort of pale blue actually appearing there as an asset that I can then apply multiple times over my design. And at any point I can choose, oh, you know what, don't want that color at all. I do want to edit that color to be maybe a little bit stronger. And any version that I've got used throughout that document of that color then gets changed, which is, again, really cool. Same with text. So once I've got the basic text concept, I'll just add that as an option there that's come through as Helvetica New 20 point, and that's a great starting point. One of the things that people also love to do, so just remove those, is actually create that clickable link between this artboard and the next one. And this is where we start dropping into prototyping. I'll just do a quick prototype, then I'll come back to a few design concepts. So essentially what I want to happen is when I click on the camp image here, I want it to go to the next page. So what I do is pop into prototype, and we can click on any particular image. I'm double clicking on it, and it gets this little blue arrow that is asking me to push to what it is that I want to do next. And in this case, it's going to go from this image after I tap on it, as it says tap. That's the trigger that's actually set. With the other options that we have are things like drag actions, a games and keypad concept, even voice controls. So you can actually set up a Hey Siri or an Alexa style voice command for our triggers. And the option here is a transition. So that seems to be an option that works nicely for this. I'll show a couple of others later. And in this case, I'm going to slide this left. I think slide left will work nicely. So let's actually see what that now looks like as an option. So if I go over an area here and I click on camp, tap, it will slide right to the next screen. But what I'm doing is slowly building out a pretty cool interface. for my project. Other concepts for designs. I'm just going to add another element over here. I'm just going to draw a nice rectangle, fill it with our color. We can do lots of really interesting things with animations, and you might think of this as maybe a information card or something like that that has some text and images. And what I want it to do is kind of create a revolving style animation. And in order to do that, and this is just a very quick concept of it. So what I'm going to do is actually duplicate this entire artboard just by clicking duplicate, Command D, and then making some changes to this artboard over here. So I'll make that change and change the color. And I'm going to add a little bit of fun transforms to this object. So do some 3D transforms that allows me to then just provide a little bit of animation concept. So now when I go from one artboard to the other, what I want it to do this time is in prototype, go from this artboard to that artboard and actually auto animate what's going to happen. And I'm going to auto animate over time for about a 1 second. Well, let's just actually see what that one looks like. So again, I'll bring up my preview, and if I tap on that object, you can see it actually animating the concept. So, you know, again, I can be quite creative in the way that the effects and things that I want to happen on any particular artboard start to become really, really, really interesting. Okay. Now, I just might stop there just for a moment to see if there's any questions. Is the concept of what Adobe XD for and what it's all about becoming clear?
Yeah, our chat room is a bit quiet here. So, guys, what do you think? Based on what you've seen now, what do you think? Is it something that you feel could be of use in your teaching and learning as a wireframe, the ideation, or design and prototype?
I think we've sent everyone to sleep, Brian.
Thank you, Abigail, and she said it's looking great.
Oh, cool.
And Andy was saying, yeah, it would be great for students to start prototyping. Right now, I kind of feel that in the way I look at XD is that because it's a very visual tool, and it makes design and ideation much quicker, because obviously when it comes to final development, it's always the time, the one that will take a lot of resources and effort, right? And but I don't want to do all those hard work, coding or anything, making the real thing when I haven't quite nailed down the idea and the design, right? Whereas with XD, because it's so visual, I could do loop multiple times. If it's not working quite right, maybe some feedback from someone else. If it's not a little bit not quite right, well, I could always make some quick change and then test it again. And this to me is why I feel that it is very good for ideation, to get the idea right and to get the design and the interaction right before we. And sometimes, you know, this is all it needs, right? Just present the idea, present the as a presentation, and see how it goes.
Absolutely. Okay, so what I might do next is introduce. So far, we've added some colors and some text. The last of the options here in document assets is actually something called components. And it's actually pretty important for working with documents inside Adobe XD. So what I might do is create a button. And create a button starting point just by dragging out a frame. And it gives me all those nice little handles again for making a nice rounded corner. And I can choose a fill that might be, let's, around about that sort of color. So I've got my button, and I want to pop some text inside. So this is my button, and it doesn't look great so far because the button's not a great color, but now it's a better color, and I'm going to make sure that the text is actually centered, because I'll put the text over here in the center of the button. It'll tell me visually when it's roughly centered. So great starting point for my button. And what I'll do is actually group that button. So I'm just going to go to Object and Group. And as soon as I do, I get this little padding option showing for me. So I'm going to enable padding because I want to see what values are actually there. So I want everything to be the same. So 20, 100, 20, 100, so that it's a nice consistent looking button. So this is now something that I'll use all the way through my project in various different ways and manners. And a project can actually get quite complicated. I'm just going to open up another project that has been authored previously and just give you an idea of just how complex a project might get. So, this project has been developed for lots of different devices. So I'll zoom in on an area here. So this one's the iPhone version of this Compass travel application. And there's going to be lots of different buttons and cards and elements that you can see the basic information there appear in a number of different areas, and even these cards with some text, etc. on it. So, and then they get applied to iOS versions and Android versions and perhaps even iPad. So it does get very, very complex very quickly. And we even have here some master items that we use over and over. So when things are complicated, what we want to do is make them as simple as possible for using over and over again. So here's my quite ugly button, but not too bad, I guess. And there's a couple of different ways to actually make this a repeatable component that I can use for all my different outputs, whether it's a website or an app or an Android app, etc. I can click on the plus here to make it a component, or I can even click on the plus over here to make it a component. It does exactly the same thing no matter what, and it will appear over here in components. There's a little visual cue that suddenly appears on the button that I've created. It turns green, which means it's a component for me. And there's this little solid diamond, which tells me that this is actually the main component. If I delete it and then drag the component from my library over here, it doesn't have the solid green, which is interesting. If I right click on it, I can actually edit the main component. So if I click on edit main component, it will add that original button back again, despite the fact I deleted it, and it's got that solid green diamond again. And so if I wanted to, I could actually edit that button here. So maybe the fuchsia that I've chosen as a color is not really the most appropriate corporate color for me. I want it to be more sort of bluish. You can see that once I edit it here, it automatically edits over here as well, which is very, very cool. So that's the main button. So again, I can just delete that and then start making changes to my interface as I'd like. Even to the point that if I come in here and say it's no longer my button, but this one's the home button, and you can actually see that with the padding, it automatically adds the space around this button, and it keeps it consistent. So Now it's completely up to me whether that button expands or it actually stays the same. So at the moment things are moving out. So I might say I might actually fix the width of this button. And so when I come in here and type, whoops, that didn't actually work, it would change. So I'd have to actually click on both sides to make that change. Okay. I've actually got it as responsible. That's okay. So now if I do bring out the original component, you can see it still says my button. It's the width of that basis, but it does change. So if I do just type button, oops, it doesn't change the one that I created over above previously. So it retains its own option. Now, if I go back and I edit the main component again, you can see that it goes back to my button. So anything that has been changed will stay changed. Anything that I update will flow with the entire concept. So the idea is that you want to keep a family of items looking similar, but obviously there's going to be variations depending on text and images and other elements that make up a more complex interface. But you do want to keep things consistent. So I really love the way that do components. And components can be very complex as well. They can have lots of different items with them. The other thing that makes this is actually something that I would love in other applications as well, other design applications that I work with Adobe applications. You can actually see the guides there just showing the various sizings. If I do have multiple elements on any particular page, in fact, I might grab this image from over here and maybe just grab a couple of versions of it and then drag and drop some of the other images in place. So I'll have multiple different images, and I want to choose to reorder those images. So imagine this might be stacking cards of music videos, or the interface is just showing things in lots of different ways. What I'll do is actually group those objects again. And one of the options that I get, I don't want padding this time. What I want is a concept of a stack. I want to enable or disable this stack. And now when that stack is enabled, I can actually select one of those objects inside and automatically reorder them. And you can see I can make sure that they're nicely aligned. But again, the cool thing is just being able to really quickly reorder the way that each of these images is placed in that stack. Now, if that stack went sideways, so that stack, if I just preview this, there's no actual option there, but what I can do is then allow it to be part of my interface that will actually do a drag scroll as I'm working through. But again, I've got this capability to reorder those elements as I'm working. So again, very flexible in actually pulling all these together, and extremely useful for creating a very quick and easy design. So the next problem that I face when I'm actually, I've got my ideas and the wireframe's really coming together, I've really got to start to make it look more like a real application. And so I have access to within Adobe XD, directly from Adobe XD, this concept of grabbing the UI kits, which is the user interface kits for things like iOS, material designs, Windows, for example. So if I click on iOS, it actually brings up the Apple Designer resources pages. And on the Apple Design Resources page, we have iOS and iPad Adobe XD developers kits. And so this actually has all of the little iconography for things like batteries and time and all those sorts of things, and all the user interface guidelines, etc., for Adobe XD to then incorporate into my project. So extremely useful, including even the Mac OS and Watch OS versions for Adobe XD. Apparently the TV OS as well, which is something I only just noticed, which is cool. So you can access those from within the interface of Adobe XD. Obviously, these are just available from the web. So if I do go to more UI kits, for example, this actually goes to the Adobe website. And these are all the Jumpstart with user interface kits direct from various sites. So we've got Google Material Design, AEM Concepts, the Microsoft, even Alexa and IBM Design. They're constantly adding to these. So it's very, very useful for actually helping us to develop a pretty amazing set of animations very quickly. So really the idea here is to remove all of the hard work so that we can go direct to our ideas. And I do find that the hard work is actually just generating that look and feel that looks really schmick in the end. Okie dokie. So we've gone through the process of doing our design, and we've done a little bit of a look at what prototyping actually looks like. So what I might do is just go into that in a little bit more detail and go into our more complex looking application and show just how building out our interface and the way it works does work. Okay, so this Compass demo at the moment, again, when I've finished all my design, I pop into prototype and I see how things are actually hooked up. So I'm just going to click on this object here, and I can see that there's actually already a tap concept. So when I tap on this particular search icon, it will actually bring up a keyboard. So I'm going to just remove that by hitting delete on the keyboard and give you an idea of how that's actually hooked up. So over on my artboard, way over here, is actually a little iPhone Flow mobile. This is another artboard that's actually been created just with the user interface of the iPhone mobile keyboard. And so what I want it to do is have that appear on my interface when I tap on the icon here. So in order to have that happen, what I do is literally, if I just scroll out a little bit, I go from here and point it to there. There is other ways to get that to actually happen, which is just via a list of all the destinations that I have. So if I just remove that again, I can click on this and then choose the actual destination. So if I've got lots of different artboards, obviously it becomes quite a list, but the listing in this case does include that iPhone keyboard, so much easier from a visual point of view just to click on this item and flow to that. So in this case, the trigger is the tap. And what I actually wanted to do, instead of transition to that artboard, which we've seen the transition going from just a flat image to that 3D animated type of concept, I want it to actually overlay. In fact, let's just see what happens when I tap on that as it is. So it actually goes completely to that artboard. That doesn't fill out the screen. So I don't want that to happen. I want it to actually overlay the existing frame, and I want it to slide up. And you can see where it slides up to. There's the little green indicator over on the left here to show where it actually slides to. So now when I click on Home and I preview this look and feel, I'll click on the magnifying glass and up pops the keyboard. And again, I've got a lot of control over how long that will take and how it actually appears. It might ease in, ease out, bounce, etc. So all of these different options are ways that it will actually drag into place for my application to look real, as it were. So again, lots of interactivity that we can then start building out and making our application look exactly how I'd like it to go. And I have to say that once kids have seen what can be done, it is extraordinary how quick and how efficient they can, when they're all grouped together and coming up with ideas, how amazing they can be in creating these interfaces. And the ideas that have come out of groups of students has been pretty extraordinary in the short space of time that I've seen that people have had access to this. Fully featured, quite cool apps in 3 or 4 days. It's pretty extraordinary. Never underestimate kids and their creativity, that's for sure. So this is the process of actually prototyping up our design. So as you can see, with lots and lots of artboards, it can get very complex in a very short space of time. And as I click on each of these different objects, you can see all of the different interactions that happen when tapping on certain elements, going back and forth between different views. You get a quite complex application in a short space of time. Okay, so one of the really cool things that I've found to be extremely useful is this concept that once you have some design assets, so here's some of these master components that we have built for this design. What I want to do is actually incorporate some of these elements into my other design. So I can grab this object here and just copy it. And if I go to my other project that is here, and I want to incorporate into my project here, I might just do another artboard. And I paste. What I get when I do paste for that is it's actually linking this element, this component, added the component to my components list, and it's actually linked to the other project. So what I can do is start building out a library of assets that can be used by multiple projects that are all linked to this initial concept. So if I did go back to the original Compass demo asset and make some changes to this item, it would automatically flow through to this item. It just allows me the flexibility to design for multiple different projects in one fell swoop. So if I've made some subtle changes to the colors, etc., I can easily change that. So very cool process of actually designing for multiple different options. So I think from just a general standpoint, that's where I wanted to get to for introducing what Adobe XD is all about. So I might just open up to some questions and see if there's anything that I haven't made clear about what XD is all about, and the standard basics of where it sits. So is there any questions?
Steve, you were showing the plugin earlier, right?
Yes.
That plugin, is it free?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's good. Because I was saying that many of the plugins are also free, but I wasn't quite sure the one that you shown was.
Yeah, Whiteboard is absolutely free. So if I search, let's see, I've already searched for it previously, so let's just make sure it is free. Of course, it didn't. Apps, tutorials. Oh, it's not going to find it, is it? Board. I do want XD, and I do want Whiteboard. Come on. Sometimes my search doesn't work, Brian. I'm not sure why.
Well, I believe you. I'm sure that if you haven't paid, you
there it is.
paid, right?
No, that's right. So it just says installed. So I don't believe I paid for it.
Yeah. Not like you, right? So Steve,
no, exactly. I'm very cheap. So
right now, okay. I suppose, right. So when it comes to student, right? So let's just say they use it and they do prototype design, etc., etc. How are they going to submit this as an assignment to the teacher?
Oh,
so do they send it to teacher as an XD project, or is there a way that where it's easy for them to submit the assignment?
I didn't share, did I? I was getting to that. I should have got to that. Okay, so I've got there is a number of interesting ways to actually go about this. So I might just demonstrate how this looks on my mobile device. So I'm just going to open up a view so that you can see what I'm doing. And unfortunately, you're going to see my face momentarily, hopefully not for too long. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's horrible. And go to iPhone. And I've got on my phone Adobe XD there. So I'm going to open up XD. And because I've been playing around in the cloud, you can see that 3 minutes ago, I did have this document open. And it will load my cloud document onto my mobile device. And I can start to work on it. So if I click on, in fact, let's see, there we go. We can zoom around and I can work my interface. I can tap on camp. It goes to that, which is very, very cool. And so this is actually on my phone now. So anyone that I've actually shared this this project with back here in XD. So Brian can actually look at the same project on his mobile device. So
it has come through on my mobile. So Andy has this question. So that is really what you are answering. That if you want to preview on iOS device, right? So what it does is that as long as you have saved it into the cloud or share it with anybody else, right? That person or you yourself would be able to display the project in your iOS or Android device for that matter. And as long as you've got, you first need to, I understand that you need to go to the App Store, go and install Adobe XD first. And then this application will appear and you'll be able to run it natively. I shouldn't say natively, sorry. And then run it just as an XD project in your mobile device.
Yep. And I'm just creating a link for this project as well, so that it can be previewed in a web browser. So it's Just got to 99%, which of course is not close. Obviously, because we're talking, that it's decided that it doesn't want to go to 100%.
I suppose that means that apart from as an application, if the user doesn't have say XD or whatever, right, and you can still literally publish it as a web link. And
Yes.
if it's a web link, the only thing they need is an internet connection with a browser, right? And it will open up in their browser then.
Just being decided 99% is as far as it's gone to 100%.
Oh, right, that last mile.
Yes. And it will give me back, hopefully in a very short space of time, a public link that I can share with you to show you how that...
I think, right, while it is waiting, right, I think one advantage of using this share and publish, share as a web link is that if I remember correctly, if you give the web link to, say, the student, give it to the teacher, right, the teacher would be able to put comments and feedback on that on the web link, and so that you kind of like, oh, maybe I want to just let the student know what I think about this, etc., etc. So the students will get some, commenting.
Yes. So it's just taking a little while to generate.
Last mile for some reason is slower than what normally does.
Yes. I think my computer's doing too many things. The fan is buzzing away. But essentially, there's there we go. So there's
this one. Yeah, just copy the link, and if you open it in a browser, right?
I'll just pop that into a browser. So this is the design review. So here's the same interface here inside my browser, and so I can go back and forth between the various items. And obviously it's not a full working application yet, but you get the idea. And from here I can again invite other people to view this so that they can do a can view or a can share of the interface. So this one is the design review, but we can also do other options is user testing, development, presentation, and even customize, so that we can customize it to allow comments, open in full screen, show hotspot hints, include design specs, and again, anyone with this link can go through and do that. So what I might do is actually just pop that link into our chat. And so hopefully you should be able to follow that link.
Yeah, so if you all right, just click on that link, you could have a play with it. I'm also doing it now, and where is the comment? So
yeah, I'm not sure.
There should be a comment, right? So what happened?
Should allow for comments.
Because your checkbox, the tick box is there, so it allows comment. And somehow, I'm not seeing the comments there. Full screen mode, there is no commenting thing. Where is the comment?
Maybe it's because I don't want comments.
Well, guys, trust us, right? So it's supposed to have.
Abigail's made a comment.
Oh, right. So, yes, yeah. Now it comes, right? So it's just taking some time for some reason. Maybe it's just getting late, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Look at that. And Andy's made comments as well. Perfect.
I think that's great. So that between the teacher and student, right? So that there could be some review annotation that comes back, and the commenting are things like you could put a pin to wherever so that you could direct people knowing that this is a particular whatever that is, right? So this is a nice photo, and I'll just put a nice photo there, and. With the pin as well, then you could direct people where this commenting is, where are you referring to?
Awesome. That's a great way of creating quite amazing stuff in a very short space. The map needs to be bigger. Oh no! And Brian thinks it's a nice photo. It really is awesome. I just love the way that the interactivity and the collaboration works inside XD. It's very, very cool. Okay, so I think, have we covered everything, Brian? Is there anything that we should? I mean, XD has a lot more functions and features and interactivity that we've just sort of walked briefly through. There's an awful lot to learn in it. It's certainly not something that you can learn in a quick afternoon. But from the very basic concept of building out a wireframe, it's very quick to use and to interact with, and then you start developing all the really interesting concepts of interactivity.
Well, Andy, I have this question. What type of artboard, I suppose the size, dimension, should the developer start if they intend to, right at the beginning, think about across platform applications?
Yeah, so I mean the starting point really, you do in something like our Compass demo here, we're actually working in lots of different artboard sizes depending on the output that we're working with. So, we've got, if I just zoom right out, we've got web pages as well as, the responsive web pages, as well as iOS, iPad, and various phone sizes. So what is the right one to start off with? It is based on what we're actually creating. If we're creating an app, obviously it sits within the phone dimensions. If it is a web page, then we work with going back to our starting point. A good web page beginning point is 1920, 1080. So that's a good starting point for creating the web pages.
I think the bottom line is that the XD artboard is not responsive. The components can be made responsive. The artboard cannot, right? So as such, if I am going to create cross application or cross-platform applications, you do like what Steve is showing on this screen there. You create artboards. This for iOS, for Android, and even for iOS, you might have to think about, should that be iPhone 10, iPhone 11, because they look a little bit different, right? iPad or iPad Pro, a website, you have to think about the dimension there. 1920 may be a good one, but is this the only one? No, it's not, right? So I think this is something that, something to bear in mind. Personally, I just thought that would be wonderful if XD artboard is responsive as well, right? But it's not. So the way it is that you have to create different artboards for different form factors there.
That's right. Yeah, I think they are working on responsive artboards, but again, there's a lot of complexity that goes with that, and even from a CSS point of view, usually they're looking at just very simple 3 versions of things. It's a vertical and horizontal phone layout, vertical and horizontal web layout, vertical and horizontal iPad or touch device layouts. So very often it's a complex area. There's no two ways about it.
Very, very difficult. I don't know how it's going to work actually. Right? For web, it's easier because things can be percentage, right?
Hmm.
But here, everything is in absolute pixels, so I have no idea, right? But it will be something that, well, for the engineers to for them to think about, right? But for now,
Yes.
at least as of today, if you are creating cross-platform application, then yeah, you create different artboards.
Yep.
Mm. Uh, Abigail was saying that reflects the different programming behind the different platforms. Mm.
That's right. Yeah, it's very complex.
So, anyone else have further questions? We hope that this session has been useful, and we also love to hear your feedback as well. And maybe I remember what we also need to bring up is the resource page.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
yeah.
That is
Yeah, because this is only a little bit over an hour, right? So what's next, right? What's after, right? And yeah, so here are the resources hopefully that you could use. We've already got the first link earlier today, right? So that is the get started page. So that was for you to learn further about XD. But then we've also got education exchange, and all those places that have great resources. Steve, do you have the link? I don't have the link handy.
I've got edX, but I'll just
Oh yeah,
bring up.
oh, yeah, this one, yeah. edX, right? So this is the education exchange, and if you are interested, there are. It is. I was told recently that there's over. Was it a million? What was that? A million? Oh, I have to
It's
check it
a
out.
million individual users, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, from the
contributors,
Ad
and
Exchange, right? So over a million people have subscribed to edX. edX, Education Exchange is mainly for educators, teachers or educators using our software. There are a lot of learning resources, teaching materials on using various Adobe software. So if you haven't subscribed it and you want to be the a million member too late because it's already past a million. But we still welcome you to join in. You could help us bump to the next million.
Can I just chime in? I'm from the technology and adoption team at Flinders Street. So I just wanted to say thank you to Brian and Steve for their tutorial today. And I'm just going to post a couple of links in the chat as well.
Oh,
The first
thank you.
one we've just started a team to help teachers within the department with Adobe products, and I believe Tim is also going to be looking in from time to time to help. So if you'd
Awesome.
like to be part of that team, there's a link there. And then the second link is for feedback for this session, so we can pass that on. And also, if you fill in the feedback form, that will generate a certificate for you as well.
ooh,
Again, thank you very much, Steve and Brian. It's been very informative.
excellent, been fun.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. And in that case, I think I'll stop the record. Hang on, let me just make sure that all the links are there, right? The feedback link doesn't work. Is that right? No, no. Oh no, I clicked on the wrong. The feedback link doesn't work. We try. Ooh, you don't have permission. Yeah, the
Yeah.
form. I click on that link. The form.
Yeah, you actually
other
need
one.
to have a school's Learning
Oh,
account. So if
I
you
see. I see.
aren't logged into our department's Learning, then it will come up with
With an error.
you not
Yep.
having permission. So Andy, if you try it in a browser where you've logged in with your school's email address, hopefully that will work. If not, please feel free to send us an email and we can sort something out.
Oh, awesome. That worked for Andy. Thanks, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, great. In that case, I'll stop the recording now. Thank you, everyone. And I'll send the recording link to Amanda afterwards so that she can share it with you all.
I think Tim's got the details, but it's for Cindy, and she's not
Right.
able to tonight.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, no worries. Yeah. I like this is a way for students to make applications without heaps of technical knowledge. Yeah, exactly.
So
That's what it's meant to be. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. The designer's tool for sure.
Okay, all right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you
See you
all.
all next time. Bye.
Bye.